Hi, welcome to Nevin's Lab, and this is the second part or second video on the Youde Goblin RTA. There's a separate video on my channel showing my review for the device and what I think of it, what comes in the kit, etc. This video is the tutorial on how to do a build on it and successfully wick it to get a good result. I have had no flooding issues, no leaking issues, no dry hits using the method that's included in this video. I tend to vape this at around 30 watts, between 25 and 30 watts. I've got a 0.5, just under 0.5 ohm build using Clapton coil in the device at the moment. In the video, what I'll show you is how to do a build with standard coil. Clapton coil is a bit more fiddly because of the size, and that will show up in the close-ups. But then the wicking I do with my Clapton coils in, because that's what I like to vape. So it's a little bit different. You'll see in the close-ups me doing a build with standard Canthal 0.35, I think I use in those close-ups, and then it will cut to the Claptons already in and showing my wicking. But hopefully it will give you an idea of the two parts of the build that you need to know to have some success and what it's like. So we'll have a quick vape on this, and we'll go straight down into the close-ups on how to build and wick the Goblin RTA. See you in a bit. So let's put a little build in this. I'm going to do two builds in this. I'm just going to do some with some standard Canthal, and then I'm going to put a bit of Clapton wire in, because that's what I like to vape with in these tanks. I just find the taste is richer, so before I put it all back together I'm going to do that. So I've got my building base here. I'm just going to screw that on. I've got my coiling tool. You can use a screwdriver or whatever it is you've got. I've got one that's with a chuck in the end to put various different bars in, and some 0.35 Canthal, which works out at about 26 gauge, somewhere between 27 and 26 gauge. And I'm just going to put 6 reps. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I made a little coil. This is 0.25 millimeter. I don't know if I've mentioned that. Anything bigger than that, and I find that the space on the deck isn't enough for bigger coils. So I tend to use a 2.5 mil. I'll make another one. These are just really rough coils, just to show you how quick and easy it is to throw this together and have a working coil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a couple of rough little coils. just going to pinch them and torch them briefly to make them neat and tidy. That's it. You don't have to do this, you can do it once it's in the device. And if you've got ceramic tweezers, you can fire the coil in the device to heat them up to get the gaps out. Okay. So I'm going to put the coil on the bar and basically feed it in through the negative, and I'm feeding it through this positive here. If you read the manual, it says to use this positive, but then I find that if you use this one, you're bang on, you're over the hole, nice and easy, you don't have to mess around too much. So I've been doing it this way. You can follow the manual and use the other hole. So we're just going to push it up, make sure that it's inside the deck, tighten it down. And we're going to cut that off nice and flush. I'm just going to push it right down so it's out of the way. Put the other coil in. Second coil. Okay, and then we need to just cut this off here. Right, and all I'm going to do is just shove the coil over the hole, like that. And you see as I'm moving it, the coil is moving, so that means it's not tight enough, and we just tighten it up a bit. Watch out with tightening these that you don't cut your wires off, because you can do that. You just screw them down too tight and all of a sudden your coil's floating around because you've cut it off. Okay, and that's it. The last thing to check is just to put your deck on, screw it down, and just make sure that you haven't got the coils touching the edge. That's pretty close there. I think I'm going to push that coil in a bit more. I don't like how close that is, but you can see it's quite a tight space in there. And that's why I found the 2.5 mil bar is really the ideal size Obviously smaller would work as well, but you wouldn't want to really go any bigger than that. So there we go, we've got some daylight between our coils. They're both in there. They're not the best, but it just gives you an idea of how easy it is to build on. I'm going to take these out and I'm going to put a bit of Clapton coil in there, and then I'll show you how I wick it. Just wanted to show you a standard coil build. So I've got a couple of Clapton coils in here. As I said, that's what I like to vape. I tried videoing putting the Clapton coils in, but it is a bit of a fuss and the video was just getting too long, so I'm probably going to cut all of that out. Essentially though, what I'm going to do though is put the chimney on so you can see how close these are. Just quickly zoom in. Zoom in. Hopefully the camera will focus. So, come on camera, focus. There we go. So you can see there is a tiny gap, and actually if I fire them, they're firing nice and even, no sparks or hot spots or anything, so I'm happy they're good. So let's put some cotton in there and I'll show you how I do that. The same method works equally for these coils or any other coils that you might put in there. Japanese cotton here, there's various different sorts, and I just buy these pads. What I tend to do is I like to just tease it out like this, basically fluff it up. If you do this, it makes one of these pads last ages. If you cut a strip off and then decide you're going to use that strip, by the time you've done what you need to do, you've wasted so much. And I end up with something like that. My little method, everyone's got their own, but my little method is just pull it and see, get that in the shot, see where it just sort of separates in the middle. That's my two pieces that I'm going to use for my wicks. So I'll put one of them down, and that section where it's separated in the middle, it's nice and thin, and I will twist that and cut it, just because having a nice little square end makes it easier to get through the coil, and just pass it through. Now I'm just pulling it through here where I've got a bit too much friction, just kind of teasing it apart, which makes it thinner. So just pulling it apart, which makes it thinner so that it's not too much cotton. And that's about right. Got a bit of movement there. And you can feel it squeaking against the inside of the coil. Other side. Make a square end on it. There we go. And that one's just squeaking inside. Now, what I've been doing for this particular device, it says in the manual to stuff these channels. It says in the manual to stuff these channels with wicking material. I haven't done that. Basically, I cut it off nice and short, like that. I'm really cutting it off short here because I found this is what works for me. And basically, I'm just shoving most of the cotton onto the deck and just tease a little bit of it. And if you can see this, but tucking most of it onto the deck and just leave a little corner of it and tease that down into the well there, just like that. And it's a bit easier once you've got some juice on, but I do start off with it dry. It's not quite so messy. And just shove most of that onto the deck, not really caring about whether it's pretty, and just getting a little corner of it and making sure that's in that juice well. I think I'm going to do that again with a bit more, with a bit of juice on. As a lot of you will know, cotton is a lot easier to work with in these types of scenarios when you've wetted it with some juice. Okay. So you can see there what I've done. I'm not bothering to cut it to make it fit. I'm not trimming it into any fancy kind of shape or anything like that. I'm just shoving it around so that most of it's on the deck and we've got a little bit in the well. Nothing more fancy than that, really. I don't go in for all these fancy techniques because they're too variable in whether or not they work. Whereas this, I found the simplicity of it is what means it works every time. And I have recoiled this 3 or 4 times in the time that I've had it, trying different resistances, different coil builds in it, see what would fit, and I've settled on 2.5mm diameter, 6 reps of 0.35 works well, gives me about my 0.5 ohms, or 5 reps of the Clapton wire. And then you just basically just check that I had the writing the right way up, because it will screw on both ways round. Not that it matters, but you want it to be the right way up, don't you? So screw that down. I'm just going to quickly check that, plug it in. Just going to quickly check that I haven't created any shorts or hot spots or anything. That seems to be going well. Yeah, lovely. Okay, chimney piece on. I'm going to go for the smaller of the 2 tank sections. Put
bottom.
Hi, well that's it for the build. I hope you found it useful, and I hope that using that method, if you're new to building in these kinds of tanks, that you will get some success from following the tutorial. Here it is again, in big tank mode, because those close-ups were recorded a couple of days ago. I've put the big tank on. In terms of vape, I've said this in the close for the review video, that with the bigger tank on, there is a slight difference in slightly less flavour, a tiny bit. The flavour is still great on this tank, and slightly less warm vape. But other than that, there's really very little difference between the larger tank section and the smaller section that you will have seen in the close-ups. So there's not really much more to say on the close-up, the closings for this video. If you want my full opinion, positives, negatives, etc., then please go and watch the review. Fast forward to the end if you want, and just listen to the closing part of that. So we're just going to finish off with a quick vape, and this is the build that you saw me put into the tank in the close-ups. I've been vaping this build for a couple of days since I recorded that, and it's the same wick and everything. It's still absolutely superb. As I said in the intro, no gurgling, no flooding, no leaking, no dry hits, more importantly, and it is vaping the tank all the way to the end. Here we go. So that's 31 watts on the smock. We'll whack it up to 35. You know what, I tend not to vape it this high. With this particular juice, you start losing the flavour much over 30 watts. But we'll give it a quick go at 35 just so you can see. Absolutely spot on. The wicking is keeping up perfectly. No hint of a dry hit. It's just wicking and wicking. Absolutely brilliant. Love this tank, and that's all there is to say really. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful, and come back again for the next one. Thanks very much.